living here in Franklin County, the death penalty isn't really something that comes up often in our daily lives. And for that reason, I've never had a personal connection with in any way of a crime worthy of capital punishment. But like most of you, I do watch the news, and the news mentions such crimes quite frequently. I know everyone's heard of the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting, but many of you are probably unaware that James Holmes, the man who killed 12 people and injured 70 people, was given 12 life sentences plus 3,318 years. And it's extremely obvious and goes without saying that he could never serve all of that. When I first heard that, I was extremely appalled by the thought of someone being given 11 life sentences too many, and I really didn't see what good that did. But every year, there are 14,000 murders in the U.S., roughly, which leads us to ask the question, what is the best way to deal with those who commit murder? The death penalty or life sentence? Many of you probably have your own opinion already on this, but the death penalty is the most effective way of dealing with murderers. The common ideology among those that oppose the death penalty is that it is unjust to kill another human being regardless of the circumstances. To give a little background information, a majority of U.S. citizens are in favor of the death penalty, with 61% of the population supporting it already. However, there are still many people that oppose it, and for a wide range of reasons, and some of these reasons include the high cost of having someone executed, the possibility of an innocent person being put to death, and the overall efficiency of the capital punishment system. But as previously mentioned, the dominant ideology is that it is never justified to take someone else's life. They use the old adage, two wrongs don't make a right, to get this point across. And they also say that all life is precious and must be treated with reverence. And I know many of you are Christian in your beliefs, as am I, so you'll likely find it interesting that many Christian opposers of the death penalty use the story of Jesus stopping the woman from being stoned who committed adultery. And while there is a lesson to be taken away from that story about forgiveness and turning the other cheek, it's important to keep in mind that adultery and murder are two very different things. Back to the idea that it is unjust to kill someone no matter what, I would like to argue that it is more of an injustice to the victim's family to let the murderer live than it is to kill the murderer. Not all of the time, but a lot of the time, a person is murdered because of a robbery gone bad, or a person is murdered and then robbed. This tells us that the perpetrator was most likely struggling to get by and had a very low quality of life. They probably had no health care and probably didn't get to eat 3 meals a day. So a life sentence for someone like that really isn't that bad of a punishment. Sure, they are confined to a small room for 23 hours a day, but they aren't searching and scavenging for food like they were before. In fact, they don't even have to lift a finger because their food is brought right to them. And if they get hurt or sick, all they have to do is tell someone because they get free medical treatment as well. So, how do you think the victim's family feels knowing that the person who murdered their little girl, their father, their sibling, or their spouse likely has a better quality of life now for the rest of their lives? And don't get me wrong, I agree that any loss of life must be avoided at all costs, but it sure does seem that it is more of an injustice to feed these people for the rest of their life and give them free medical treatment. In closing, I ask you to imagine that a member of your family is robbed at gunpoint and then murdered. The murderer is convicted without a shadow of a doubt, and you've been given a glimpse into their life. You see that they lived in a slum with no air conditioning. They often had to skip meals, and they couldn't go to the doctor every time they got sick. Instead of finding a legitimate way of improving their quality of life, they turned to a life of crime. Now ask yourself, is it more of an injustice to execute that person because two wrongs don't make a right? Or is it more of an injustice to give that person 3 meals a day and free health care for the rest of their life using your tax money? Yes.
Do they use any capital punishment now?
Yeah, they do. Most states do. I think there's like 5 or 6 states that don't. Yes, ma'am.
What's like the most popular like type of capital punishment?
They usually do lethal injection. That's the most common method.
If they were to give life sentences, why do they add on so many? Because you said clearly that they can't serve 12 life sentences.
The idea behind that is that if they just had one, they could possibly like have an appeal and get it reversed. But if they have 12 and they get one reversed, then they still have that many to. But so there is a little bit of logic to that.
Have there been many cases of innocent people being put to death?
There have been a lot of people that have been like put on death row and like set for execution, and then their case was later reversed. So yeah, that does happen quite a bit.
All right, thank you.